So you mentioned earlier, Gabby, about how you not being a perfectionist has really helped you in this writing process. So I'm curious to hear, when you're writing that first draft, are you just not editing as you go? Are you just like literally just like writing, just writing and writing and writing and not going back to edit and just coming back to it
Yeah.
much, much later?
Yeah. Well, first things first, I have a core message and I have a really clear outline.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually share some of my methods for getting your core message and your outline together. And we'll give your audience a link for this, but I'm doing this free training on how to turn your book into a bestseller. And I give my main methods for core message and outline, so we can go over that in that link that you'll give them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I create that killer outline, I can then be untethered. And so I know where I'm going. I know what the intention is. I have a clear outline and a journey that I'm taking the reader on. And then I just riff between the outline. I get it all out. I'll then reread it, lightly, loosely edit it, move things around a little bit, and then I send it to my editor. And I hire an editor to clean up my manuscript as I go, because it just feels like the best way for me to stay untethered. And so she'll do an edit, and then I'll move on to the next chapter. And then, we keep that going. My editor, Andrea, is just amazing. She will just clean it up. She'll stick to my words. I write every single word of my books, every single word of 9 books. Not a single word is ghosted. Maybe an editor has like changed a sentence once or twice, but these are my words, my books. And it is all about being untethered. It is about being free. And so that imperfection comes in handy.
I love that. And I think you're so right about having the outline. Like that creates, like having that structure creates the freedom for you to be able to riff and not completely lose yourself. Because I can't imagine trying to write a book without having an outline to follow. It would be
Totally.
like coloring in without having the outline of whatever you're coloring.
Correct. Exactly. Good metaphor. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I think a lot of people have this dream to write a book. Have so much wisdom and so many incredible life stories to share that really want to help others, but they have this story of, I'm not a writer, or other people have already written about this. There's already so many books about this. Like, what about my story is going to be different? There's no room for me. What kind of advice would you give for these people who are kind of holding themselves back because of their own belief in their own work?
Yeah. I think that when we're in that fear-based belief system of who am I to do this, we're stuck in our ego. We're stuck in the parts of ourselves that feel we're inadequate or unlovable. And when we get out of our own way and make the book writing process not about ourselves, but about the reader, that's when we can clear those belief systems. When we remember that a reader, even if we touch one soul through the book, that we've done our job, then that's enough. And so if you make the intention to serve one soul, then how can you fail? And in the true expression of your experience, you are serving your reader greatly. And so I always say that it's your responsibility to share your work with the world. And I think when we start to focus on how can I serve my reader rather than I'm not good enough, then everything begins to change.
I love that. I've realized one big part of the book publishing process for me is like this: once I've handed it in, this sudden fear of like, oh my God, what if it's not good enough? What if it's too vulnerable? What if I've shared too much? What if people aren't going to like it? I'm curious to hear if you still have this, like 9 books later, do you still have that fear of like, how are people going to receive this or not?
No, I don't. But I am, with this new book I'm writing, very mindful of writing disclaimers for the reader saying, hey, I talk about sexual abuse here. I want to give you a
Mm,
heads up so that you don't get triggered. And I think that a lot of books, you don't necessarily have to do that or have the responsibility of doing that, but I don't want to activate people through the writing. So it's not about what they think of it. It's about caring for their experience. So in this new book that I'm writing, I want to be very cautious.
mm. Yeah, that's a really important point. Beautiful. So you mentioned earlier about like you really channeling these books, and I think that is writing for me is such a spiritual practice, and I feel like we are channeling books. We're not writing them. We're literally channeling through us. So what kind of practices do you use to help keep that channel of yours clear so that you can receive this divine wisdom and guidance that goes into your books?
I make sure I'm uninterruptible, number one. I think I also shared that I choose my magic hour. I say a prayer before I write. I just say,
Mm,
thank you, Spirit, for writing through me. And I do this thing that's hard to describe, but I switch to it's almost like I'm switching to a different part of my brain.
mm,
Like I go, it's hard to describe because it's just sort of unconsciously happening, but I turn to the more creative space. So it's
mhm.
like the right brain's creative capacity. I get out of logic and reason and I just allow myself to turn a switch almost. It's very strange. It just happens. And it's I don't really know that I can describe it, Mel, but it's so
Yeah,
cool that
yeah.
I just lean into this other part of the brain where I just like kind of open up my ability to just allow. And also because I am we all are mediums, but I do hear spirit. So I can say, hey, come on in. Let's go.
Love that. Really like tapping into flow state. And I imagine the more you do it, the easier it becomes to just switch that on.
Yes, that is
Mm,
actually very true. Yep.
beautiful.
Mhm.